Hey folks, Ross with HikeWadePaddle, and today I've been sitting here knocking out some foam hopper patterns and kind of tweaking them as I go until I get something I really like. And I did get something I really like. Nice, compact hopper pattern there. And I'm going to show you how I'm tying it. So starting out here, I've got my bodkin in my vise. I've got a couple of pretty long pieces of 2mm craft foam, and I'm just going to start tying an extended body, extended abdomen fly on this bodkin. And I'm going to tie the foam a pretty good way up the length of the bodkin, because I'm going to fold this foam back over on itself. And that's what's going to form that pretty fat body section of the fly. And I cut my fly, it doesn't have to be neat, to a little bit of a tapered end. I cut my foam rather. Just makes things a little bit easier when you're tying your finishing wraps on the fly at the midpoint of the bodkin here when you're getting ready to take it off. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of wrap back diagonally and start forming the body sections of this fly, and fold the foam over top of itself. And I'm just going to do that back to this end point of the foam, and that's going to form the body of this fly. Alright, so in my vise here, I've got an Allen D202 number 6 carp hook. A little bit heavier hook that's great for foam terrestrials. It's not a long hook, it's a short shank, and this is going to be a pretty compact fly, so that works in my favor. I'm going to just tie my body section in, and I'm tying slightly in front of the point of the hook. You can see that there. And I'm just going to tie it in at that point where I finished it on the bodkin. Looks good. I've got some hopper legs here, and I'm just going to tie those in on both sides. Looks good. I'm going to add a very thin noodle of dubbing over top of those. Actually, first I'm going to dab just a tiny little drop of super glue on top of both of those legs. Don't want little bluegill ripping those off the fly. And then I'm going to dub that very thin noodle of olive ice dub. And this fly wants to spin around the shank of the hook, as you see, but once we advance forward, it's really going to lock that foam down and it's going to stop spinning. So then I'm just going to lift and I'm going to work my thread up to just behind the eye of the hook, and that's where I'm going to tie down this bottom piece of foam. And you want it tied down securely, but you don't want to compress that foam too much, because you want to keep that fat profile of the fly. And if you compress that foam too much, you make it a little more difficult on yourself to do that. And then I'm just going to cover that foam up with more ice dub, but this time I'm going to be using peacock black. And that's just because the head of this fly is going to end up being black. And so, I mean, you certainly could tie it with that contrasting ice dub. I have before. It looks pretty good, but we're going to use black here. And it takes quite a bit of dubbing, as you see. So I'm going to dub up to the eye of the hook, and then I'm going to work my way back to about this midpoint of where the foam is going to fold over. And once I have that done, I'm going to fold this foam over, go through the eye of the hook, or rather put the eye of the hook through the foam, and then I'm going to tie my foam down at this midpoint to form the head of the fly. And I actually probably didn't come back quite far enough, but it's still going to look fine. Trim that bottom piece of foam off. Now here, I'm going to tie in some emerger yarn for the wing of the hopper. And it's going to be a little wild, but I'll show you how we tidy that up here in a second. I'm going to trim that off just at the body length of the fly, right there at the tail. That's the word I'm looking for. Tail end of the fly. I want a nice big indicator for this thing, so I'm going to be using some 3mm craft foam, and I'm going to stamp that out with the indicator cutter for a Marish hopper pattern. Really, you can just cut it with any piece of foam, but I have these stamps. They make things come out pretty neat. It satisfies me. Get that popped on there. I'm going to tie in a couple of rubber legs. Tie those on top of that indicator, and I'm going to use pretty loose wraps for this. I don't want them to flare too much. And just for a little bit of contrast, maybe a little bit of a hot spot effect, I'm going to dub over those with a nice thick noodle of olive ice dub like we used at the back of the fly. Three-turn whip finish. No more, no less. And the number of the counting shall be 3. A, if you made it this far, thank you. And B, if you understood that reference, you're good people. And we should be friends. I'm just going to pull the legs down into place. Trim them off nice and neat. And that fly is ready to fish. Stay compact. Sexy hopper pattern that is going to absolutely hammer the spring and summer bass and bluegill at my favorite little Panfish lake. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Hope you like the pattern. Try it out. Go fish it. Thanks for watching. We'll have more for you soon.